We were raised in a poor farm community, but we always had enough. And I remember my parents through the church at times, but we were always looking or doing things for other people that didn't have as much as we did. So I think you're kind of raised with a culture about whatever you have, you're still able to help somebody else. And I think those childhood things that get ingrained in you to kind of stick with you for the rest of your life. So I don't consciously think about it a lot, but I think that was just part of my makeup, was we were always looking to help somebody else when they needed it. One element of it that may be overlooked, but for me I found it to be the case, is what I call relationships. And I find that I have involved in the YMCA, for example, and I started with that because of my relationship with Dan Powell, who's the executive director, and Dan asked me to do something, and I agreed to do it, not so much that I knew that much about the YMCA, but because I knew a lot about Dan and his passion for what he did. And then when I started helping out whatever he was he asked me to do, I realized how valuable the organization was, so I sort of embraced it. But it all started because of relationships, and the same would be true of like Dina Kern at the Boys and Girls Club, and people like that. Pat Brady at Good Samaritan. I'd never even heard of Good Samaritan. Pat called me one day and said, "Hey Al, I want you to come sit on this advisory board." And I only did it because of Pat, not because of knowing anything about Good Samaritan. So I think having a relationship connection, it goes back to that small community idea. There's enough of us that know enough each other and trust that if you're passionate about something, it's worthwhile, pitching in and giving a hand, and then you find yourself drawn into it and embracing the bigger picture sometimes. I was talking to Chuck Schlosser one day, who used to be with the Semler Foundation, and just chatting with him about this idea that I've had for several years, and he said, you know how he is, and he called me back a couple weeks later and said, let's talk more about that. So they eventually funded a program to do, we ended up calling our World War II project, and we collectively, we had like 15 or 20 interviewers who really deserved the credit for this, but we created a book with the help of the Semler Foundation, and I think we had 98 veteran stories of living World War veterans from the Lompoc Valley, basically, and we compiled that into a book that was published. And that process, which ended up taking almost a year, I think, to get done, was incredibly rewarding for not only the veterans. I think they were so pleased to be able to tell their story to somebody who wanted to listen and memorialize it one last time, but to their families. And we concluded the event with a dinner over at the Elks Lodge, which was sold out, and it was the most emotional evening I've ever spent. Well, maybe I conclude on, when you mentioned organizations, there's another one here I should probably mention briefly because I'm so excited about it. It's not really a charity, but it's a nonprofit. It's the Lompoc Rotary Club, and they are a dynamic group of men and women. They conduct a number of crazy schemes and have a lot of fun, but they raise a tremendous amount of money and put it back in the community. And it's fun being a part of a live wire organization like that, where there's a very high energy and a very high focus on doing something for the community. So it's one of our best organizations locally, I think.